Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I just want to give you guys a real quick overview of the Glock 19 Gen 5 edition. So I've had this now for almost a week, and no stranger to Glocks. I've got several hours behind, maybe even days, I don't know, behind the trigger of Glocks. And I used to be a real big Glock fanboy. I've since diversified, as you can probably tell by my videos, and I don't hate. You know, I don't have any hate for any gun manufacturers out there. I just kind of shoot whatever works best for me, and I find more and more that it is a great time to be alive and a gun shooter in this day and age, because it seems like everybody is cranking out some pretty good hardware to play with nowadays. So we'll get to the task at hand. This is the Gen 5 Glock. I would do this outside as per normal, but it's like 100 degrees out right now. So doing this one inside, we'll take a look at it. Just so you guys know, all my guns have been checked safe before I start filming. So nothing to be worried about there. This is going to feel, look, and weigh just about the same as any other Glock that you've had your hands on. I'm going to point out some things that maybe other people haven't, and kind of take this a little bit of a different direction, because I'm sure you guys have heard over and over and over again kind of the nuances of this gun and what some people think about it and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to start a little bit, kind of top down like I do like normal. I'm going to say basically first, we'll talk about the finish, and that's also my 300 round count review. The finish on this gun is very nice, and it feels durable, and it looks durable. I've had some Glock finishes that start to kind of show almost like a holster wear, basically right away. This finish is very nicely done. It's not as slick as the real early Glock finishes, but it's not as grippy as the last Glock finish. And again, I'm not real well versed on these coatings, so I don't know what the buzzword is or what they're called. But anyway, this finish, very nice, nicely done, easy to clean. It does kind of retain fingerprints a little bit, but really, who cares? So just something to think about there, I guess. We'll talk next. I'm going to go on to the sights. There's nothing I can say here. I don't get it. I don't think most of America gets it. If you haven't seen my other video, I explain why I flipped the sight there. It's kind of an old Glock hack. If you don't like the rear sight with the little basketball and the net thing there that they put on there, I can't stand it. I don't shoot them well. They're junk. They're basically just dovetail holders for actual sights. That's pretty much all they're used for. I would never, take this thing into a combat situation like this. I don't get it. I think if you're going to make a generational change, you should probably change the things that have been problematic all along. And these sights have never had a good response from anybody. I mean, I've seen people shoot them well, especially like GSSF events. I don't know how they do it, but it's just what they're used to. But I've never seen anybody rant and rave about the quality of stock Glock sights. They're garbage. Okay, so just Glock, you're probably not listening. But if you are listening, let's put the metal sights on there with the 3 dots and just get it over with like everyone else has, okay? These need to go away. Nobody likes them, all right? I have a DeFore front sight on there, a metal sight that I just had left over laying around, so just kind of improved it a little bit for my own shooting pleasure, because the stock sights are pukey. We'll talk about the accuracy of the gun next, because that's kind of one of the touted things there. The rifling slightly different. There's a kind of a little inverse cup on the end of the barrel there. Don't know if I can get it in the right light for you guys to see it. The barrel's definitely changed. Supposedly the lockup has changed as well with this gun. I'm not going to say it makes a difference, but it's made a difference, at least to me. So if you get a Gen 5, don't get it because you think it's going to be like inherently accurate. But I will tell you that for a compact size gun like this, I'm seeing some really impressive groups. So just something to throw out there. I don't know if I can attribute it 100% to the changes that they made in the barrel area and stuff like that, but this has been an accurate gun for me, and feels and shoots and groups much more like a full-size gun would, rather than just the Glock 19. compact size. So something to chew on there. My experience, extremely accurate gun so far. Reliability, stock Glock reliability, it's second to none. There's just not a lot of moving parts inside here. There's still not a lot of moving parts even with the changes they made, and we'll show you that in just a minute. So it's going to be reliable. They made some changes to durability, some common failure issues, just to kind of point out a few that I'm aware of. The release here for the slide, that's got an actual coil spring in it now, as opposed to that little weird bar hingy thing that always broke on the other ones and would cause issues. There's some other changes with finishes and so forth inside the gun here. There's just been a lot of different modifications made. I kind of pointed out in my other video that the slide seems to have more of a gap in between there, maybe for reliability. I'm just not used to seeing. I can, my eye can detect, and I don't know if it's just this gun or what, but there's just more of a gap than I'm usually accustomed to seeing there. Some oddities, obviously the pins, the second pin that was up here on that locking block is gone now, just like the older, like the Gen 2s and so forth. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if it's, maybe they changed whatever it was causing pin breakage issues on the Gen 2, and this is good to go. It couldn't hurt. I guess it adds simplicity, and it is also maybe reduces just minuscule amount of weight, but that's different. Ambi slide release, I don't really care about that. I'm not a lefty, but it's, if it works, it works, so I'm not going to complain about it. The one thing I will say, the finish on this ambi slide release is not good, and it's starting to kind of get shiny already. This gun's not been carried yet, so no reason for it to do that. It's got some wear marks on it, so that's going to be silver colored really soon, and it's something that just seems like a lot of the slide releases or slide stops on Glocks are that way. So finish not so great on that. It's not anything you can't live a perfectly healthy life without addressing, but at the same time, it's probably going to be pretty irritating when that's shiny and makes the gun look like it's been used a whole lot. The front bevel is nice because I like to carry my Glocks in a minimalist holster. So a lot of the gun is exposed, including the barrel. It's not even in a piece of Kydex for me in that carry position. So the bevel, I think, is a really nice addition. I wish they would have done this sooner. It always just amazed me that they could do this bevel on like the subcompacts, like the 26 and so on, and they just didn't think to add it to the other guns. I believe the 34 had it, or the longer slide ones had it. But they never made it to the ones people actually carried, like the 17 and the 19. So, I don't know. That one's been a long time coming, but I'm not going to complain too much because I think it's a good addition. Something else I spoke about earlier, you can obviously see that there's just not a whole lot of room in there. It's not very oblonged in the slide. So, it seems like maybe a tighter fit barrel. So, obviously good for accuracy there. Moving on with the gun, things I don't necessarily like that are Glock holdovers. The trigger still has this trigger return safety here that sticks out further than the actual trigger itself. Some people learn to shoot with them. I have always just taken a piece of sandpaper in some cases or a round file, and I just file it flush here. It doesn't affect the performance of the actual trigger drop safety there, but it does make it much more comfortable to shoot. Other than that, there are no more of the serrations or sipes or whatever you want to call it on the Glock 19 trigger at least. So this is just like a standard Glock 17 or a full-size smooth trigger that they put in there. So again, if you want to, that's what I do. I just I make this thing flush, and I just kind of sand it down until it fits nice and flush when I pull the trigger, and it seems to work good for me for comfort and so on. Other than that, you're going to be feeling that safety right in the center of your finger, which is not a super nice feel to it. So moving on down the gun, I have not messed with the grip sizes. These are standard fare. I always use the medium without the beaver tail. That's what I put on this. It's shooting perfectly with it. There is nothing new or crazy about the mag release as compared to like Gen 3, or excuse me, a Gen 4 Glock. The Gen 3s had the skinnier one, so if you're used to a Gen 4 mag release, it's pretty much the same here. I don't know that those have changed any at all. The Other selling point, I guess, is going to be this grip here without the finger grooves. You know, people complained for a long time about the finger grooves after they stuck them on there. I'm not sure what the fanfare was, if there was complaints about the Gen 2 and they thought finger grooves would help maybe the traction issues that old grip had, but I like it. I was one of the ones who, you know, I felt like I kind of ran out of space on the old the Gen 3s and Gen 4s as far as the compact size, and on this one, you know, my fingers don't feel as forced to be all smushed together like this. So I like it. It's comfortable for me. I'm not saying that it's a huge selling point or anything, or that it makes a vast difference. This is 120% a Glock. You're not going to, you know, be just floored by the way this thing feels in your hand, but it's a good change for me, and it's probably be a good change for you if you had issues with your fingers feeling cramped in the older style fingered grip there. I'll move on next to the Magwell, and I don't have a mag with me, but I'll tell you about some of the changes on that, which you've probably already seen. But the Magwell itself is nicely flared. I like what they did. I like this direction. In my other video, I pointed out the big issue is with the notch here and back here. Now, this rear notch has been on Glock since Gaston was a child, I'm sure. But the front notch is kind of a new addition. And it kind of reminds me of, I had an art teacher when I was in elementary school that kind of scarred me for life, because I would draw good pictures and then I would scribble coloring them in. I hated coloring. I just thought it was a waste of time. So he would always kind of call me out and say, you know, I don't know why you waste so much time making such a beautiful product and then you're just going to ruin the coloring. And I went to school in the 80s, so yeah, you could get away with telling a kindergartner that then probably. But anyway, that's kind of what I feel like on this. I feel like, you know, that's a nicely designed Magwell, and then somebody in the last moment of production, for whatever reason, has taken a mill and just driven it straight down on top here and not finished it. You know, I don't know if you need like an army of, you know, hand finishers to finish beveling this off, or if you can just make a different setting on your mold or whatever machine does this. Probably a mill is what it looks like, but something needs to change. I don't like it. As a matter of fact, the guy in the gun store who pointed this out to me, the employee there, he said, you know, I like everything except for this big notch here. I mean, I can feel it digging into my pinky, and I grip with my upper fingers mostly, so I didn't really feel that necessarily, but it's an annoyance. It's a 90-degree, you know, angle there that is, you could cut your finger on it if you ran it against it hard enough. There's no doubt in my mind. So same with the rear here. It's a sharp edge. I mean, it's going to catch magazines as you try to load it in there if you have any variants up front to rear as you're trying to speed load those magazines. So I just kind of, I don't get it. They had something good going on and then threw that in there. Now, that said, I don't have a lot of speed time behind this yet, so we'll see if it does affect any magazine loading. But I've got a friend who shoots IDPA frequently. Is an extremely high-ranking IDPA competitor, and he said that on his Glock 34, which is obviously not Gen 5 yet, that he's had issues getting hung up on this rear notch during quick reloads. So I don't think that's a good thing. And I'll talk about the functionality of it next, because some people are out there probably like, well, they did it for a reason. Okay, yeah. If you have a, you know, class 3 malfunction that you're trying to clear out where the magazine is bound up in there and you got to pull it out, that's nice to have something to grab on. But Glock, why couldn't you do it maybe on the sides or something where other manufacturers do it? You know, just kind of make a nice beveled cut out of there and then kind of finish it off so the funnel still works. Just an idea. I don't know. I don't work at Glock, and they don't consult me for anything. But I don't see. I know why it's there. It could be useful, but I don't know that I've ever had that type of malfunction on a Glock. And the lockup in this is supposed to deal with weak magazine springs better. So it's supposed to minimize that sort of failure anyway. And do we really need this? I don't know. I would rather just have a nicely finished Magwell. So those are my thoughts on it. And again, time will tell, and obviously usage will tell if that's going to be an issue. I just, initial look at it, I don't think it definitely doesn't look like it belongs. and I don't think it's for the better as far as that goes. Other than that, we'll talk about the big three. Obviously, capacity. This sets the standard just like the Glock 17 did with 17 rounds in your full-size duty gun. This bad boy carrying 15. Nothing changes there. So it's right on par with capacity. You can put in your Glock 17 magazines all day in this and fire no problem. So you have the expandability of most platforms nowadays with that parallelism. We'll talk about accuracy next, and we already kind of hit that earlier, but it's very good. It's been a very accurate gun in my hand. And last thing, reliability. I don't know. It's a Glock. I haven't had a single issue with it. It's fired everything I've fed it so far, and it has actually thrown the brass to the side, which is kind of a neat thing to see out of a Glock instead of getting blasted in the face, because I've had some Glock 19 specifically that did that, and I had all kinds of cool smudges on my face after a good range session. But this time I didn't get hit in the face with brass, so that's good to see too. Looks like this is going to be a fairly reliable gun. I don't have any questions about that. So inside the gun, we'll go there next, and I'll tell you about the trigger. A few small changes inside here. Mostly, I mean, if you're used to tearing down Glocks and, you know, working on them and kind of doing your own gunsmithing, because there's only like 34 parts and it's basically like a adult Tinker Toy set in here, you can kind of figure out what's going on. But a lot of the stuff has been changed. It's still the same. You're not going to have an issue like trying to figure this thing out, but some things have changed. The return spring for the trigger in here was classic, just a failure. It would break over time, and that's been replaced with the old style, kind of like the compression springs, like you could get the New York or the whatever, Massachusetts or whatever other terrible state that they mandate that stuff. The more compression style return springs, and that's what they're using in here now. So that's going to be, you know, that's going to be solid. I don't see any failures going on with that. The connector is still in here, just like you have on the older style Glocks, and also this little bar connector here that connects the trigger to the trigger group back in here, the actual mechanism that makes it all work. There's probably a fancy name for it that I'm totally forgetting, but that's all right because it's my video. But yeah, I thought the trigger was okay, maybe like a notch above what we're used to out of Glock when I first shot it, and then I did put some rounds through it, and then I did a 25-cent trigger job on this and just kind of polished some parts. And after polishing the parts, this thing has really come alive. I mean, it is a very good Glock trigger. So I'd say after some wear on just a normal trigger, or if you want to do the polishing and stuff yourself, you're going to notice a difference with this as opposed to other generations of Glock. And up here in the front, we just have the newer style safety plunger. It's the ramp style, kind of like they use in the smaller guns, the 43 and the 42. So that's really one of the only additions there. It kind of helps with trigger feel. You don't have all that crazy, mushy, clanky stuff going on during the pre-travel of the trigger. Other than that, it's got a nice break. It is the wall is not as pronounced as on other Glocks. So this one is not really worn in yet, and you can you see obviously the pre-travel is very easily swept up because of that redesigned safety plunger. I hit the wall and then it just wants to break through. It's not like the older ones where they kind of get hung up on that wall and you have to really force it through. This has got a nice smooth sweep. I got a little bit of grit in there still, but it's going to work out over time. So nothing to be concerned with. Very fast shooting gun. Glocks for me tend to be fast shooting because of the way they sit in my hand, and also they've got that more of a stiff return spring that really works that spring out, works the trigger out as you pull it back, so you just kind of let off a little bit and get back into it. I can really shoot it quickly and accurately. So overall, win in my book. I think this is a nice revision. I'm not so sure that I would run out and swap all my Glocks over for the Gen 5 model. I just don't see that much of a change in it. I know the price is different as well, so not so sure that I would go out and do all that stuff. And I think maybe this probably should have been a Gen 4.5 or whatever, and not really a full generational change, because there's just not that much that you can see that's changed. And the Glockites will tell you that a lot of stuff inside has changed durability wise and all that kind of stuff, and that's probably true. But for the end user, there's not a whole lot of stuff that you can really justify swapping everything over for a new gun, in my opinion. So just some things to chew on. I appreciate you guys checking in. I will put some more rounds down with this and have a more in-depth review as I do that. Be sure to like and subscribe and just continue sending the love so I can keep making these videos, and we can keep expanding from there. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.